course, the Crocs enter the season as the premiership favourites, and why wouldn't they? They've got a plethora of young state league players and of course the ex-AFL players like Stephen Motlop, who was excellent last season, third in the competition goal kicking and a real game breaker in the finals, and Jed Anderson, perhaps considered by many unlucky to win last year's Nichols medal at the peak of his powers, playing very, very good football in the NTFL competition. So when you've got Anderson, when you've got Narkle, when you've got Stephen Motlop, and then a few other bits and pieces too. Will Rowlands is back in districts colours, of course a Crocs junior, but one that had a bit of time at AFL level with the Gold Coast Suns and also in the Sandful. So absolutely stacked the Crocs, and special credit to co-coaches Dave Barnard and Shannon Rusker for their ability to retain most of the list. There is a little bit of criticism these days on your teams like Southern Districts and Nycliffe because of how transient they are and how much they potentially rely on players from interstate, but I think credit must go to those coaches for being able to retain the majority of last season's premiership list. St Mary's, the absolute juggernaut of the NTFL competition. There's only three certainties in life. That's death, taxes, and St Mary's being up the top end of the NTFL competition. So they'll be back. They made last year's grand final, but unfortunately lost to Southern Districts. The thing with St Mary's is their ability to retain players. We spoke about districts before, but players like Dylan Lant, his brother Jack Lant, Jaxon Calder, the list goes on of players who just come back year after year for St Mary's. Kieran Parnell, the Wiz, is in fantastic form and coming off winning a second Ovens and Murray premiership. So it'll be much of the same for St Mary's. They'll add a couple of bits and pieces. I think they will draw upon the Brisbane Lions VFL team and snare a couple of players from there. But it's that winning culture, it's that culture that never leaves them that will see them up the top of the ladder. The Tiwi Bombers are back. How good is it when the Bombers are flying in the NTFL competition? Last year, they made major inroads. They qualified for the finals for the first time in a little while, and they are looking to go one better this season. They are looking for a flag, that is for sure, under the coach Patrick Bowden. How big is their inclusions? Willie Rioli obviously has played at the Bombers before. Household name in the territory, Willie Rioli, but he should absolutely dominate, and he's bringing a mate in perhaps Jeremy Finlayson. And when you look at a bloke like Finlayson, he's super tall for NTFL standards. He could easily play as a dominant ruckman. He could play as a forward, he could play down back. So almost the perfect player that you'd want to recruit to the NTFL competition. So when you have Finlayson, when you have Rioli, they've signed the Lakoviak brothers from Central District in the Sandful, and those two players are really athletic types that adapt very well to Darwin footy. So plenty of excitement around the Tiwi Bombers Football Club. Of course, they've got that plethora of very, very talented players and look a lot better when they can sort of be complemented by a couple of interstate players as well. So Tiwi Bombers will be right up there again, and I think they can beat any team on their day. Nycliffe shape as a very interesting team heading into the season. I thought last year they were just about the team to beat, and it almost came to fruition. It was a scintillating contest between Nycliffe and the eventual Premier Southern Districts in last season's semi-final. I think that loss took a lot out of the Tigers. They weren't the same team the following week in that loss in the preliminary final to St Mary's, but under coach Lee Crossman, they'll look to go one better or two better this season, and they have a couple of headline recruits. Probably the biggest recruit so far is Rory Atkins, which sort of surprised many. There wasn't a lot of fanfare about Atkins coming to play up here, but was named in the team to play Tiwi Bombers in the season opener, and a player that should go very, very well. Plays great footy at state league level, had a handful of games for Port Adelaide this year. He's had a pretty storied AFL career. He's been in the system for over a decade now, playing at the Crows, Gold Coast, and then of course finishing with the Power. So Rory Atkins, a big signing there. I'm told that he wants to play as many games as possible and will qualify for the Tigers should they make the finals. So a big, big inclusion there. And a little bit closer to home is Jack Peris returning to his junior club. So Peris spent a couple of years on St Kilda's list and perhaps was unluckily delisted from the AFL. Has since been plying his trade with Essendon in the VFL and has played a handful of games this year in the Goulburn Valley competition in Victoria, which is a very strong competition. I believe he's getting in the best most times as well at that level. So very, very good inclusions there. Super quick, super fit midfielder. They can probably play as a small forward as well, Jack Peris. So Peris and Atkins, probably the two headline signings for the Tigers at this point of the season. Waratah in their second season with the master coach Rick Nolan at the helm. They also shape as a very interesting side. It's hard to get a read on their pre-season at the moment. I believe Rick Nolan has a few aces up his sleeve. Of course, there was the big announcement that Dane Swan would be playing for the club this season, but how many games? That's the big question. Will he qualify for the finals? It's probably unlikely at this stage, but he's someone that will help boost the morale at the Warriors when he's there. They will welcome back Joel Stevens, who's a club junior and the son of his father's a premiership player. So another homegrown talent there that Waratah will reintroduce. He's been playing some good football at Sandful level and will certainly help the Warriors team. But I think the interesting part about the Warriors is traditionally they've been a bigger set, sort of southern quote-unquote team, where Rick Nolan's got them playing a real fast style of football. The way they moved the ball out of the back half was really, really intriguing last year, where they flicked it around by hands and eventually got it forward and then created that space for what was a smaller forward line last season. So very interesting. They slipped under the radar a little bit this pre-season Waratah, but with Nolan and with his team of assistants and just that strong culture that they've built over the years under Ryan Ayres, I think that they're going to be right up there again. Let's talk about Pint. Who knows with Pint, because they obviously faced a little bit of scrutiny when they sacked coach Shannon Motlop a couple of seasons ago after they made a finals series. So they didn't go too well last year under the new coach Mark Wiley, but all reports are that he's the right man for the job. There's a lot of positivity and optimism about Mark Wiley. So I think last season was a bit of a write-off as he adjusted to the new competition. But this season it's go time, and internally there is a lot of confidence stemming from the Pint camp. So the big signing so far is that of Jimmy Rowe, former Adelaide Crows midfielder forward. He's been playing excellent football in the SANFL with the Eagles. I believe he's made 5 Team of the Years at SANFL level, so he comes with plenty of ability, plenty of experience at that top level, and there's a handful of superstar country footballers that are coming as well. So probably the biggest unknown out of all the 9 teams in the NTFL so far, Pint, but I know the optimism's very high in the Pint camp. Wanderers, the mighty Muck-Mucks, they started the season last year like a house on fire before fading badly after Christmas. So speaking to coach Aaron Motlop in the pre-season, he expects a finals berth for the team, which will be a big jump from where they finished last season and the way they finished the season more particularly. But they do have the talent in their stocks. Of course, Billy Cross, one of their recruits from last year, is well and truly on the AFL radar after winning Footscray's Best and Fairest. So will he return? One of the many unknowns, one of the many questions that we have about Wanderers at this stage. But they have signed 4 high-quality players from Country SA who should step straight in and really relish the opportunity to play at NTFL level and provide a lot for them. So they're on the right track, the Wanderers. They are recruiting well, they're trying new things, and hopefully they can come to fruition this year. The mighty Buffaloes. The issue with Buffaloes over the past couple of seasons has been the reliance on their skipper, Jared Stokes. Clearly one of the best players in the competition, an absolute game breaker, but they can't just leave it all to Jared to do all the work. So I think that's going to be where the big improvement lies with the Darwin Buffaloes. They've had another year now under Philip Wills. So last season he took over the club in sort of unceremonious terms, with Rick Bean being replaced with about a couple of weeks before round 1. So it wasn't a great pre-season last year by the Darwin Buffaloes, but they've had a little bit of extra time to prepare, and I think that's going to be shown with the quality of recruits that will come up throughout the season. And then most importantly, the emergence of the club's younger players, particularly players like Nathan Spry, who's fresh off a premiership in the AFL Cairns competition, to Sean Wright, who was best on ground in the under 17.5 comp in Ballarat, and Callan Russell, who's also a very, very talented player who's done some great things with the NT State Academy. So I think it's going to be that emergence of the younger players, and then of course Jared Stokes, Bradley Stokes, and the usual suspects at the club that's going to help. The mighty Magpies, they have been starved of success over the past decade, but they've got the right people in place on and off the field now. So it is go time a little bit. I think that their supporters would be a little bit frustrated with the amount of wooden spoons that the club's got over the past few years, but who knows? It's obviously a new season, new optimism, so they'll look to get added games into their younger players. Alwyn Davey, unfortunately delisted by the Bombers, but will he reunite with his brother Jaden Davey? If so, that's going to be a big, big boost for the Magpies. So it remains to be seen, I suppose, where the Magpies are at. I do expect improvement. A few question marks still on the Magpies, but they'll be keen to get out there and prove the naysayers wrong.